Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Ike Eisenmann, and today we are thrilled to welcome someone whose career has spanned 8 decades, has starred in one of the most beloved series of all time, Lassie, is the co-author of the memoir, Timmy's in the Well, and also co-creator of Spray, Mix, and Go, which helps relax dogs, and we're going to talk all about it. Please help us welcome Jon Provost. Jon, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, to begin with, I want to start by thanking your wife, Lori, who you had on for setting this up. So many thanks to her.
All right. I'll
we have a lot to
cover.
Yes, please do. We have a lot to cover, but to start with, looking at your bio, it's fascinating to me to see that you really grew up on screen. Your first appearance was at the age of 2 in the film So Big, starring Jane Wyman, which is not a bad way to start, really. So was your family very into the performing arts? Do you know what prompted them to get you started so young?
Oh, yeah. No, my parents were anything but Hollywood people. My father was from Mobile, Alabama, and my mom was from a small Texas town. And they, my father, he graduated aeronautical engineering from the University of Alabama. So he immediately moved to Southern California in the 1940 when, that's where the aircraft industry was. And mom was, she moved to Southern California and became a seamstress. So anyway, they met, got married, and one day, Mom read an ad in the LA Times that Warner Brothers was looking for a 2 to 3-year-old blonde boy to be in this movie starring Jane Wyman. Well, Mom, growing up on the farm in Texas, her idol was Jane Wyman.
Wow.
So she thought if she took me on the audition, guys, she was going to get Jane Wyman's autograph. That was the only reason she took me. And we didn't even live in Hollywood. We were living in Pasadena at the time. And Mom said, I'm going to take him to Warner Brothers and get Jane Wyman's autograph. So long story short, Mom took me, and it was what they called a cattle call. There were over 200 little boys and some little girls. Mom cut their hair. Hey, whatever. But I ended up getting the job. And obviously I was too young to remember. I don't remember my first 2 movies. My second movie was The Country Girl with Bing Crosby and Grace Kelly. But getting back to So Big, Mom didn't have a clue, and they were letting all the other kids go home, but they kept telling me to stay. And towards the end of the day, this very flamboyant woman came over to my mother and said, excuse me, but I believe your son is going to get this job. And Mom said, well, I haven't gotten Jane Wyman's autograph yet. And she said, don't worry, but we need to know who your agent is. And Mom said, we own a home. We don't need an agent. She didn't have a clue. The woman, she wanted to know who was representing me, the theatrical agent. Mom said, well, I guess I am. And she said, no, you have to have an agent. And she goes, well, where do I get one? The lady said, well, my name is Lola Moore, and I happen to be the #1 child agent in Hollywood.
Wow.
And I can represent your son. Mom said, well, do we have to pay you? And she said, no, I'll just take 10% of whatever your son makes. Mom said, that sounds reasonable. So, my first audition, I got the job, I got an agent, and Mom did get her autograph eventually. So that's that long story.
Oh man,
So
thank goodness. I was sweating it there for a moment.
Oh boy. But Mom, she didn't have, My parents didn't have a clue, but it was just, I guess mom was like thinking about starting the very first autograph show or something. I don't know.
Oh, that would have been cool. Well, like you said, you were so young. I mean, but in the early part of your career, you were appearing with some of the biggest stars in the world. I mean, you just said Bing Crosby, Grace Kelly, William Holden. You got Jack Benny. I mean, these were all giants in the industry. Did there come a point that you had any concept of who these people were and how big they were?
Great question. Not really, because I grew up on the soundstage. Before I started Lassie when I was 7, I had already been in 10 movies,
Wow.
even some early live television. So when I would go to work as being a little kid, I would be sitting in a makeup chair, and next to me would be, Bob Hope or, whoever, Jane Wyman.
Wow.
And, but in my mind, they were just like me. We were all doing the same thing. And as a child, I mean, I wasn't really allowed to watch television that much. We didn't even own a TV until the second year I was on Lassie. My parents, we would go to a neighbor's house and watch it on Sunday nights. My dad was rather frugal, but yeah. So, you know, I mean, sure, there were actors, that I'd seen and stuff I looked up to, but you know, they were just like me, and so it was just
What's funny is right before you came on, Ike and I were discussing this. I asked Ike about working with George C. Scott, and he said it was just like working with someone like him. So it's the same thing.
wow, yeah. It's I don't know, it's crazy. Now there were certain actors, um, well, okay, after Lassie, the first movie I did was This Property is Condemned with
We were going to ask about that
Rob.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, Robert Redford and Natalie Wood and Charlie Bronson and Mary Badham, Scout
Mhm.
from To Kill a Mockingbird. Well, Charlie Bronson scared the living bejesus out of me and Mary Badham because he was a method actor. He always was the bad guy, so he was the bad guy in this movie, and he treated us all the time as his character, as this really mad, evil guy. So we couldn't, we didn't understand it. I mean, I was 14, Mary was, I think, 12. And we just kind of kept our distance from him. But when the movie was over, he was the nicest guy in the world. So,
Oh, God, that's always so, disarming in a way and fascinating. But let's talk about Lassie. I mean, you are so identified with the show that it's amazing to realize you didn't even start at the beginning. You came in after several seasons. How
right.
did you come to the show, and were you a fan before you got involved?
Yes, I watched Tommy Reddick. I watched Lassie. It was one of the very few shows that I was allowed to watch. Um, and it was crazy. I was filming a movie in Japan, 1956, RKO. I was under contract with RKO. It was the last film RKO made before they sold the studio to Desi and Lucy. Um, so I'm 6 years old. We spent 3.5 months in Japan. We were one of the first American movies filmed after the war. It was only 11 years after the war ended.
Mm.
And so Mom and I are in Japan. The producer of Lassie is having lunch with the producer of the Escapade in Japan, the movie. And it came up over lunch that they couldn't find the new boy to play Timmy on Lassie because Tommy Reddick had outgrown the part. And I guess they had, interviewed hundreds, thousands of little boys, but they couldn't find one. So over this lunch, it came up that, well, what are you looking for? To describe the character. Oh, sounds just like this young boy, Jon Provost, but he's in Japan right now. Be back in a couple months. So when I got back from Japan, I met with the producers of Lassie and a couple of the writers, and of course Lassie. And they said yes, you're the kid. You're gonna be Timmy. They'd seen the movies. They knew I could act, so that was all good. But I was cute and I was the kid they wanted, and I was little. So they wanted to know how Lassie and I would get along. You couldn't fake that relationship between the boy and the dog, and it was genuine, guys. I'll tell you that. So when I got back from Japan, I went and actually stayed with Rudd Weatherwax on his ranch. He had a
Oh, wow.
60-acre ranch out in Saugus, Newhall area, and spent a long weekend with him and his dogs out on the ranch, and came back Monday morning, met with the producers and everybody. We walked into the office. Lassie gave me 2 paws up. Got the job. I mean, I loved animals. We were at that point, we were living in Pomona. My father was working for Convair, and we had a horse. My sister had a horse. I had a pony. We had a goat. We had, animals. So our home was surrounded by 20 acres of orange groves. It was a great time, and it worked. It worked super.
Well, you just had, I mean, you had been in so many things by then. Was there like a kind of nervousness now that you're going to become a series regular?
No, because it's I'm sorry, it's crazy. It's like I said earlier, it's just what I knew. It's what I
Wow.
did. So it's like I was going from, well, now I was in movies. I hadn't done the, like I said, television series.
Oh,
Um, so it was just another chapter in my life. I'm a 7-year-old kid now. I'm moving up.
Well, did you feel your life change after becoming a regular on such a popular show?
Well, it was a lot more frequent working wise. Yeah, when you do a movie, you have a couple months or a couple weeks, whatever it is, depending on how large your part is. But now on Lassie, oh yeah, big changes for the family,
Mm.
especially. I mean, now I'm working 5 days a week, 10 hours a day, 9 months out of the year to film Lassie. I mean, 9 months, you're going, whoa. That's because we did between 35 and 37 episodes a year. Nowadays, what, 8, 10, 12, you know?
Yeah.
But we didn't have all the summer specials and all of the mini series and things like that. So we had to do that many episodes. So yeah, it made a big change in the family. So now we're living in Pomona. I'm working in Hollywood. The freeway didn't go all the way to Pomona back then. So mom and I would leave the house at like 5 a.m., drive into Hollywood so I could be on set at 7:30 and
my
makeup,
gosh.
whatever. Um, so that lasted for 1 year, and my father, he said, no, 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 this is not right. You can't travel like that. So we got a little apartment right around the corner from the studio, a little 1 bedroom with a Murphy bed that came out of the wall, you know. And so we did that for 1 year. Then my dad said, no, 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 this isn't going to work. I want my wife home. So dad said, okay, I'll change companies. I'll work for a different aircraft manufacturer. Um, but he told my mother, you find a house that's, compatible for John's work and for my work. So mom found another house. It happened to be in Beverly Hills. So we moved from Pomona to Beverly Hills. And now my dad's working out at Garrett Air Research out by LAX, and I'm working at Desilu Studios.
Amazing. So you kind of said, I mean, said it a little bit. So you were already aware, they knew that Tommy Reddick was leaving and the rest of the original cast. So you were aware of that going in?
Yeah, I was that, but we did work together. We worked for half a season, a transition period to get me, into the to the public's view and stuff, and getting Tommy off the series. But I don't know if I really understood it, that much. But all I knew is I loved the dog. I enjoyed what I was doing, and you know, my brother and sister got up every morning, went to school. My dad went to work, and Mom and I went to the studio. That's how it was.
Well, what was your relationship like with the original cast?
Well, Tommy was 10 years my senior. So,
Mhm.
you got a little yeah, 7-year-old kid here and a 17-year-old kid. It doesn't
Right.
really, mesh. But, later on in years, Tommy and I became really good friends, close friends. And I had moved up to Northern California by now. But every time I'd go to LA, Tommy and I would meet for dinner and would every time we would meet, whether even in a phone conversation, I would always end it with "Thanks for the dog, Jeff," because he gave me Lassie in that last episode, so, and yeah, what a life changer that was.
Did he offer any advice? I mean, to you as before he left the show or anything like that?
Just basically enjoy what you're doing, and if you're not
Mhm.
enjoying it, find something else to do. But I
Well,
did. It was great. You know, like I said, it was 10 hours a day. That included, schooling, transportation, a lot of things.
uh,
But yeah, it was work, obviously, but I enjoyed it, and I did. I loved the dogs. I loved Red Weatherwax, the owner
mhm.
of Lassie. Um, I never knew either one of my grandfathers. They had all passed. But so Rug was like kind of my surrogate grandfather, and he looked
Nice.
after me as much as he looked after his dogs.
So you felt like no, I mean, you sound like very calm about it. You felt like no pressure just coming in, and now all of a sudden you were guesting, I guess, and now you're the series lead. So you felt like none of that dynamic change?
No, it didn't really. It didn't affect me in that way. Like, oh wow, now you're going to be the star in this series.
Right.
It's because Jonathan. I mean, it was like my parents were humble people.
Mhm.
Um, they never instilled in me like, oh, you're something really special in that way. You are special in that, um, you know, you give people pleasure and, you help people. I mean, over the years, the letters that I've received, from kids that grew up in the Bronx or grew up, in downtown Chicago, and they'd never seen a horse or something, and they would write and say, "Oh wow, when I watched Lassie, I escape, I go to the farm where I wish I was, that kind of thing." But nah, my parents treated me the same as my brother and sister. I got 50 cents allowance. I had to clean my room, it was just
Yeah,
like a normal kind of guy, I guess.
yeah. Well, this is incredible to me, but your mother was paid a salary for accompanying you to the show?
Well, you had to have a guardian.
Yeah.
And so, that's the way. Now, I was lucky because I'm sure you guys know there are a lot of ex-child actors whose parent, when they became, the breadwinner, I guess you could say, the father quit his job and became the manager, and the mother quit her job. Wasn't that way at all with my family. And, I think maybe that, well, I know that had a lot to do with my attitude,
Mm.
and I've had that, just what you said, Jonathan. I've had recently, uh, linked back up with an ex-child actor, Richard Carell, who became very, very big director and producer in Hollywood. He was on Lassie, he was on Leave It to Beaver, he was on all the shows, but he never had his own series. And the one thing that he told me, and kind of good friends with Richard now, not didn't really know him that much as a kid, other than when we worked together a few times. But he said that he worked with kids on a lot of different series. And he said that I was the one, he said, you didn't act like you were the star. It didn't, you didn't come off that way. And it was just, I don't know, it was just, that's the way it was. We were having fun,
Good.
um, and there were days, when it was not a lot of fun, but that's the way it is.
Well, you worked with several different dogs there, so that portrayed Lassie. And do you notice differences between them? And you have like
Oh,
one that you preferred more than the other?
oh, sure. All of them, even from, ones that I didn't really work with. Now, the dog behind you, that's my
Mhm.
favorite Lassie. His name was Baby. Well, every Lassie had a name, but once
Mhm.
they became a working Lassie, they were called Lassie from that day on. They were not called by their own name. That's Baby. Now, I worked with Baby for 5 years.
Mm.
So he and I mean, we grew up together, we bonded. I loved him and he loved me. But if I would tell him to do something, no, you're not my trainer, you're my friend, and that's how it was. I mean, he wouldn't do, if I told him to shake hands, he wouldn't even do that. But he loved me. And sometimes I would leave the studio on Friday go to his ranch, spend the weekend out on the ranch, and he had a pond I could go fishing and do stuff and just get out of Hollywood. Um, and it was great. It was also a good way for me to bond with Lassie. I think they knew that. But to get back to your basic question, I worked with 3 different Lassies in 7 years. The first dog I worked with was Tommy's dog, and he was
Mhm.
the old man. He was old. He was ready to retire, and he was the son of Pal, who was the original
Oh,
Lassie, who only made movies. Pal made 5 movies, and actually they had a radio show before television, a Lassie radio show that lasted 1 season. So
Mm.
that was Pal. Then his son took over. The old man worked with Tommy for 3 years and worked with me for a year. Then his son, who was called Spook, took over. But Spook wasn't working out so well. We had an accident on the set. Nobody got hurt. Spook didn't get hurt, but it spooked him. Okay. So whenever we would set up, that's how he got his name. So whenever we would be setting up a scene that was similar to the one where we had an accident, um, he would get nervous and he wouldn't want to work. So, and that was it. So Rudd said, okay, now I'm going to have to replace Spook with Baby. And Baby was really young. Um, but he turned out to be just an incredible dog. He was really great.
Mm.
mm.
But yeah, I know them all. I can tell them all. I'm
And
like a
you can
mama
tell
zebra.
you can
I
tell
know my baby.
yeah, you can tell the difference
Or a
between them
papa
too, which is
zebra.
incredible. Well, we were reading that Cloris Leachman, who was on Lassie
Yeah.
early during your time, she hated being there and argued with a
Oh
lot of the
gosh.
cast and crew. Did you saw that?
Oh yes. Oh
Oh
yes.
wow.
No. Yeah, Cloris Leachman and John Shepard were the first Paul and Ruth Martin. And I mean, if you look at June Lockhart and Cloris, they are just like totally opposites. So I don't know why they even cast her for that part,
Huh.
but it wasn't for her, and she basically told all of us, I'm not baking damn cookies for 6 years, I'm out of this one, I'm
Yes.
gone. She wanted to
Well,
go do Young Frankenstein and all the good fun stuff. But so then one Sunday, people were watching the series, and it was Cloris and John as my parents. The next Sunday, it was June Lockhart and Hugh Riley. Studio didn't get one letter. People didn't care about the adults. They were watching the kid and the dog. I don't even think they knew that, hey, wait a minute, these are different people, and they had to change both parents, because if you just
like,
changed one, people would really get crazy. So,
Oh
but
that's amazing.
yeah.
One of the funniest things is that that Timmy fell in the well never happened at all during the series. So when did you first start hearing that catchphrase?
we have not a clue where that catchphrase came from. Um, when you mentioned earlier about my book, Timmy's in the Well,
Right.
when Lori and I were doing the book, and thank God my mom saved every script. So
Mm.
The first page of the script was a synopsis, told you the story. I thought I fell in a well. We went through every script. Not once did Timmy ever fall in a well. We did find one episode where some bad guys were, trying to do something, and they were running around the property, and one guy fell in an old abandoned well, which of course Timmy and Lassie saved him. But we don't have a clue where it came from, but everybody knows it, you know. Um, gosh, Leno, and I mean, even going back to Carson, he would say it.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
yeah, you watch Colbert says it. Everybody said, what's going on? Timmy fell in the well again. The world is going down the tubes. Timmy's in the well.
Oh, good. That is absolutely hilarious. Well, you just mentioned June Lockhart and Hugh
Yeah,
Riley, who came in around the time you transitioned
right.
to becoming one of the leads. What was your relationship like with them?
Great. Hugh was the guy you saw. I mean, that was Hugh Riley. He was just this very mellow, really great guy. Really, really great guy. And June was June. June was beautiful. June was, you know, I mean, she was just, a seasoned actress. And I mean, Lord, we love watching at Christmas time, A Christmas Carol with June and both of her parents. She was 12 years old, I believe in that. But yeah, June was great. June will be 99 years old this year, June the 25th.
My gosh.
She's amazing. We've kept in touch over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I remember a few years ago, I called her for her birthday, and she was about 95, 94. And she goes, John, she goes, I've had an incredible career, but I'm just going to enjoy the rest of my life at home now and relax. And, she used to do a lot of tours and autograph
Right.
shows and things like that. But she just said, it's time to relax now. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Great. The show was still going strong when you decided to walk away. So what prompted your decision, and did they really try to keep you going on there? I mean, did they
Oh,
want
yeah.
you?
We had a 7-year contract with a 3-year option. Luckily, the option was ours. We could, go either way with it.
Mhm.
And, I was going through the same thing Tommy went through.
Mhm.
I'd been on the show for 7 years. I'm 14. I'm going through puberty. I love the dogs, but I like the girls too. And it's like everybody thought of me as little Timmy with Lassie. I'm becoming a man now. And so I told my parents, I don't want to go on for 3 more years. And they said, fine. What do you want to do? And I said, well, I like acting, but I just don't want to be Timmy anymore. So, and that's what Tommy did. That's what happened to Tommy. And it was the right decision at the time for me.
Oh, okay.
I could not see myself going on for 3 more years.
Yeah, well, that was my next question. Do you have any regrets about leaving?
No. Now I do have a regret. After Lassie's first movie was This Property is Condemned, and then I did a movie with Gary Merrill. It was his last movie. We filmed it in the Philippines. It was called The Secret of the Sacred Forest, and I'm looking at a poster on the wall right now. Nobody ever saw this movie. It was the worst, but we had a great time filming it. So when I come back from the Philippines, I got a job at Disney with Kurt Russell in the computer wore tennis shoes. Ball. Had a great time. It was the only Disney thing I'd ever done. Kurt and I both had our birthdays while we were filming. Kurt turned 17, I turned 18. And we're sitting there at the commissary having lunch. And I go, Kurt, I've been working 15 years. Maybe it's time I should take a break. And Kurt said, John, I think you should take a break. And so that was really when I said, okay, I'm out of here. And that's when I left LA. I moved up to Northern California to go to college. And I fell in love with Northern California, just a little bit north of San Francisco, and have been here ever since. But what Kurt didn't tell me was that there were going to be 3 computer movies, and my character would have been in all 3.
Oh no.
And that would have been like, we probably would have finished the other 2 episodes that same year. And yeah, and I had so much fun on that. But he didn't. So anyway, that's what I regret. I should have hung in there, but I didn't know. So,
We're going to come back to Computer War Tennis. We do have a question, but I want to ask first about the other one you mentioned. This property is condemned with Natalie Wood and Robert Redford. You mentioned, right? So Redford wasn't a huge star yet, but Natalie Wood was.
oh yeah.
So yeah, there'd been so much written about what a troubleshoot that was, like starting with an unfinished script and constant rewrites. Tennessee Williams not being happy with it. So what are some of your memories about that shoot?
I had a lot of fun. We filmed it down in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. So we were going between Louisiana and Mississippi, and of course, like I said, my father was born in Mobile, Alabama, so I was familiar with all of that. We would go visit, grandma, and boy, that Natalie, like I said earlier, I was 14, the hormones were starting to go, and that Natalie Wood, I'll tell you, wow, she's about my size. Yeah, she was something else. I didn't actually have a scene with her, but we all stayed at the same hotel, the cast, the crew, everybody was there. And so we got to meet everybody. But yeah, it was that cast, Robert Redford, Natalie Wood, Charlie, Robert Blake. I mean, everybody was in it. And yeah, we had a really good time. But it was, it was difficult. Sometimes we kind of got the feeling that the locals didn't really like all this Hollywood type, hanging around. And sometimes we would be filming a scene and a local, would walk right through it, even though they knew, no, you're not supposed to be doing this, right?
They didn't care.
We're just gonna throw something in here and mess it up a little bit. Yeah. But no, it turned out it was a great movie too, by the way.
Well, what was Sidney Pollack like as a director?
Now Sidney too. I believe that was only his second movie, I do believe. He was great. Everybody was great. And we didn't, of course, we were just, Mary and I were the only kids on that one. We didn't really know about all the back stuff that was going on.
So going back to the Computer War Tennis Shoes, because I love that movie. It's so much fun. You said Kurt Russell, Cesar Romero, Joe Flynn, and even Frank Welker, one of his few on-screen roles. So how did you get involved in that too to begin with Disney?
I don't know. My agents, the call went out. They needed somebody to pay Bradley in it, and truthfully, I don't even remember auditioning for that. I think it was, one of those, they knew that, you had the looks they want. They knew you could do it. So, come on in. But yeah, I wish Kurt had told me that. I would just, oh, wow.
Oh man,
I'll have to write him a letter.
I would still be chewing on that too. I got to be honest with you. Well, how did you feel about like working on a Disney project? Because I know for me, it was an incredibly wonderful experience. Because just working for and with the Disney people is so different than everything else that I compared it to. Was it that way for you as well?
Yeah, no, everybody was great. Like I said, I'd never worked Disney before. I knew, Disney kids. And no, it was just it was a great time. We just had a lot of fun. Everybody was great. Now I did try out, and this was after we did the computer. They were looking for like a new band or something, and me and a couple buddies had like this little, garage band that was really bad. And we went and tried out, and they said, nah, there's no, not for you.
Well, when the new Lassie came out in the 80s, did the producers approach you immediately about playing a role?
No, this is funny. I heard about it through the grapevine.
Hmm.
Somebody from LA called me and said, "Hey, I hear they're going to be doing a new Lassie series. Well, are you involved with that?" And I go, "Nope, first I ever heard about it." So what I did was I found out the producer was Albert, and so I made the call. I called Al. I said, "Al, hey, and you're going to love this. Hey, Al, this is Jon Provost. I understand you're doing a new Lassie series." The first thing he said to me, "Oh, John, well, I didn't even know you were still around, but I don't want to use anybody from the old show." Okay. And so I said, "Well, okay, that's fine." I said, "Maybe not in front of the camera, but behind the camera, consultant, writing, something like that." And he said, "Oh, that sounds good. Let's have lunch." So over lunch, long lunch, over that, it came out of saying, "You know what? I think you could be in the series, but you're not Timmy." Okay. So we did it. And the second season, yes, I was Timmy.
Right.
That finally they figured that out. And but unfortunately, it wasn't being done the way it really should have been. It was too sitcom-y, if that's a real word.
Uh-huh.
And so we only did 2 seasons. But the best part was the second season, Bob Weatherwax, who had Red Sun, who had the Lassie on the show. We had gone to Al and said, "Al, this is just it doesn't feel like Lassie." And so he said, "Okay, then you guys do something about it. You give me some stories. You give me some scripts." So that's what I did.
Oh, oh.
I pitched a couple stories. One was accepted. It was called A Rabbit's Tale, and it was about using rabbits and small animals as guinea pigs for cosmetics and cosmetic testing. And so they picked that episode. We did it, and it won the Genesis Award that year for the best family episode on television.
Oh,
So I was
Fantastic.
very, very proud of that, and I have that award on the wall, and that was super.
wow. Well, was it surreal to go back to Lassie as an adult?
It definitely was, and one thing was really good. Al brought on the second season brought people back that had worked with Lassie. So Tommy Reddick did an episode. June did an episode. Um, Rodney McDowell, who was in Lassie Come Home with Elizabeth Taylor,
Yep.
he did an episode. And I'd never met Roddy before. What a great guy he was. Oh man, he was super. He was really great. And my role, Uncle Steve, uh, was a recurring role. I was in every third, fourth episode. One episode I wasn't in that I missed was they had this young kid on. It was his very first television show, and his name Leo DiCaprio. Ever heard of that guy? Yeah. So unfortunately, I wasn't in that episode.
Wow.
I know it was his very first thing. So
Going back to what you said, because I watched that show at the time. So I'm going to go on record and say I hated the backstory that they gave to your character. It was such an unhappy, it retroactively gave an unhappy ending to Timmy from the original series. So what did you think of that? I mean, that he didn't go with them to Australia. So
it was, yeah, it didn't make sense, and yeah, and June, took Lassie from it was very convoluted, very, very crazy, but a lot of fun.
Well, how much how much of an honor was it when you got your own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame?
That was a real kick. 1994. One thing that was really cool, now when somebody gets a star, it's just one person. They get a star that day, whatever. Well, when they first started it, they would do a group, 6 people, however many people. So when they did this award, they were doing it like they did in the past. So it was a group award. So on that same day, not only did I get mine, but the Beatles got theirs. Efren Zimbalist Jr. got his. We all remember, 77 Sunset Strip, and a bunch of other people. So that was a great time. And of course my parents were there, and yeah, it was super. And it's
Yes.
still there. And I get emails, from people. Oh, we were walking the boulevard and we saw your name there. And I say, well, yeah, did you get the gum off of it and clean it up for me a little bit? Every time we go to LA, you gotta stop by the Star with your bottle of cleanser and clean it off.
Yeah, because isn't that part of the deal that you have to maintain it, or was that a myth that I heard about somewhere?
I think that's a myth. Well, see, but you have to have good fans because they help you out there.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So you and your wife Lori co-wrote your memoir, Timmy's in the Well, which is available everywhere. So what prompted you to write it?
Well, had always wanted to, and Lori and I, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary. We met 28 years ago at the Hollywood show, which was an autograph show. And she was selling one of her books. She's a Hollywood historian, so she had a new book about Hollywood. I was there signing autographs, and we met. And she, said, I'm an author. And I said, oh, wow. I said, I've been wanting to write my autobiography, and maybe we could do something. She goes, oh, no, I think you should do it, but I'm not the writer. And so that I had to marry her, and then we got it done. But no, truthfully, I'm dyslexic. And when I was a child, there was no term for people dyslexic. They didn't know. Life magazine, remember Life magazine, the
Sure.
big, when I first got the part as Timmy, they did a full, 2-page article on me saying, excuse me, Jon Provost, Timmy on Lassie, can't read or write. He has a mental block.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. So I had to
Wow.
carry this on my shoulders, for years and years. What's a mental block? Yeah, the kid's dyslexic. So that was another reason I had to get her to help me write it. I had the stories, but I couldn't write them down so well.
Well, were there things that came back to you while writing it that you had forgotten about?
Oh yeah. And like I said, Lori's a historian, so she found out more about me than I knew. Yeah, so no, it was a great read. Oh, I did that. Wow, that's cool. No, but no, it all worked out great.
Well, let's talk about your new product, Spray Mix and Go, which is available on provostpets.com. First, can you tell us about the product and what spurred you to make it?
For years and years and years, I'm associated, with dogs, and dogs have been an incredible part of my life and still are, will always be. And I've worked for, no-kill shelters and raised money and for different organizations, was on the board of governors of Canine Companions for 25 years, supply service dogs to people with disabilities other than blindness. But I've always been looking for a product, something that I could stand behind, put my name on. My good friend Burt Ward, who was Robin, on um, Batman, he's with giant dogs. He loves the big breeds, and so he's got dog food for them and things to help them out. So I was looking for something, couldn't find a product, so we finally decided to do it ourselves. And what we came up with is it's a CBD product to help your dog or your cat relax, calm down. You know, we do rescues. We're on our third pound rescue. Pound rescue. Boy, that's an old one. Um, and they've all had, you know, issues. They've all had anxiety issues, separation anxiety and stuff. And so we all know what CBD does for humans. We've been using it for years for joints, for, you know, arthritic issues, for anxiety. And so we developed with a partner our own CBD product that is 100% CBD. There's no THC, so you're not giving anything psychoactive to your animal. And we know what, you know, you go to the vet, and my dog has anxiety problems. So what do? They give him some heavy duty pharmaceutical drugs that can have a lot of side effects. So long story short, we came up with Spray Mix and Go. It's also, there are other products out there, but they're full spectrum, which means they contain other parts of the cannabis that you don't want. You just want the CBD. And it's in a spray formula. So each spray is a measured dose. So it's easy. You don't have to take out an eyedropper and do all that and measure that. You just spray it on their food, mix it up, and go and take them to the vet or do whatever you have to do. So that's the new thing that we're working on now, and we're pretty enthusiastic about it.
It sounds wonderful. Well, what effects have you seen on your animals using it?
A lot. Everyone that has tried it so far, and we only launched it like a week ago. So
Oh,
but
wow, it's real new. Okay.
oh yeah, no, we're brand new. We're brand new out there, and you know, from feedback that we've gotten, we actually had a person that got some for their cat, and they said it's just amazing what it's doing. And so, yeah, we're really happy with the product.
Well, it's on provostpets.com. Will it be available in other places as well?
Oh, sure, it'll be available at stores and stuff. And we you know, getting the sales team together right now, and people can look for it, you know, in their local stores, but then also, like you said, you know, online at provostpets.com.
Mm. Well, you're a very strong animal rights advocate and are very involved in protecting animal rights. How can people become more involved, and which organizations do you recommend they check out?
Well, the number one thing is we all know, I mean, you know, especially after Easter and the holidays, um, the shelters are full of a lot of senior animals. You know, everybody wants the cute little puppy, and which I totally understand. But you know, the seniors. I mean, like I said, we're on our third senior rescue. We just got Casper about 9 months ago. He's almost 13, and you know, give those guys, give them a break. You
Mm.
know, and donate locally. Find a shelter locally that's a no-kill shelter, and help them out. Unfortunately, certain organizations like the Humane Society of the United States, you know, does not have the best reputation. And when you know, when somebody sends you 5 envelopes a month asking for a donation, it seems like they're throwing a lot of money away. So, like I said, you know, go local, see what you can do locally, and you know, support the animal rights.
Mm.
I want to go back to Lassie for a minute. Your wardrobe from that show was at the Smithsonian, along with Fonzie's jacket, Archie Bunker's chair. So how much of an honor is that for you? You know,
That was crazy. I got the letter. Oh boy, this was probably 30 years ago. From the Smithsonian saying they're just going to start an exhibit, television in America. Did I have anything to donate? Not really. So I called Mom and I said, you know, do we have anything? I said, I have photos. And she said, well, I saved your whole outfit. She goes, the tennis shoes, the, you know, the shirt, the pants, the whole deal. I said, well, send them to me. So mom sends them, and when I open this box, the smell, the deja vu thing, I mean, it was
Wow.
pretty heavy. And so I'm taking this stuff out, and Timmy wore these little high top tennis shoes. I think they were Keds, but they ripped the label off, so product placement. And my son's like, oh, Daddy, can I have, he was like 8, those tennis shoes, can I have those? I said, no, no, no. This is very special. So yeah, long story short, I had to sign 10 disclosures that I'm never going to get these clothes back again. They called us when the exhibit was opening, and so the family, we flew back to Washington, and it was pretty amazing. Yeah, first thing you saw was a big Sylvania television that was all lucite, so you could see inside all the workings of it. And then you walked beyond that, and it was Archie Bunker's chair, the Fonz's leather jacket, and Timmy's outfit.
Oh,
So yeah, that was I mean, come on, how many people get to be in a museum when you're alive? So I mean, really. And
boy,
yeah,
no kidding. No
yeah,
kidding.
that was great.
Well, Lassie's about to hit its 70th anniversary. Are there any plans underway to honor it?
Well, we're still on in over 60 countries and reruns. We're
Mm.
on, I know, I think Hulu and Roku just put us on again. And we're on like a dozen different, cable, stations around the country, 2 in the morning, 4, who knows? They're there. They will say, but as far as anything new, I really don't know. My understanding is now that DreamWorks owns the Lassie properties. They own the library. They own all of it. And the last I heard was, and this was a couple of years ago, a Lassie cartoon movie.
Mm.
But I don't know.
Mm.
As far as anything live, I know there's something in Europe going on, in Northern Europe, but as far as the U.S., I don't know.
I'm assuming, and I hope that they're smart enough to have you voice a role in an animated movie. So
Hey, that would be cool.
well, show is still so beloved by so many people. So what do you attribute to its popularity, enduring popularity?
The stories. I mean, all of our stories, had a moral to them. Timmy wasn't the brightest kid, and if it hadn't been for the dog, he probably wouldn't be around. But he learned from his mistakes. Timmy and Lassie, the premise was pretty easy. Timmy and Lassie save somebody or an animal, or Lassie saves Timmy, and I mean, that was basically it. But it was that every story had a moral. It had a happy ending. Um, Timmy never talked back to his parents. Wow. It was just yeah.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, it's like, Andy Griffith, I mean, you learn something from my 3 sons. It seems like everybody back then, they cared about the content. They cared about what they were giving the public. Yes, they wanted to make money, and they were, but they cared about content. Today, if it makes a buck, that's all they care about. I think. I mean, that's not true. There are some good things out there. There are a lot of good things out there, but it's for us, I think that was it. And the shows of that genre, you learn something from them.
Mm. Well, how often do you do fan conventions, and are there any upcoming for you in the near future?
Yeah, we do. Well, in the past few years, things have really slowed down because of COVID, obviously, but they're starting to pick up again. And I'm hooked up with a good buddy, Jerry Mathers, the Beeve,
Uh-huh.
and so yeah, we've been doing some shows together, and unfortunately, from the early shows, there's not a whole heck of a lot of us, still here and able to get around. But we'll be doing, yeah, a few different a few different shows autograph shows and conventions this year. The best way for people to find out is to go to my website, which is jonprovost.com. And there's an appearance button there. You can click on that and it shows everything. And also they can join our mailing list. So when I am going to be in your area, we'll send out a card or an email or something letting you know, we're coming to town.
Well, I hope you managed to get to South Florida.
All right. Well, yeah, I understand you guys have some good conventions down there.
Yeah, there really are a lot here. Oh,
All
well, John, besides JonProvost.com, how else can people follow you on social media?
Yeah, we're on Facebook and, Instagram and just all the different ones that are out there.
Well, John, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. It was such a pleasure to get to speak with you. We've been looking forward to this. I'm a huge fan of Lassie growing up. So it was such a, pleasure to get to talk to you.
All right. Well, thank you guys. It's been painless. Hey.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Sometimes they're not.
We'll have to talk about those. Well, again, this has been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Ike Eisenmann. And again, a very special thanks to Jon Provost. And please like, comment, subscribe.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.